Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another roleplay review, and this one is covering Steam Rising. And this was certified banger. I really enjoyed this log. This log was very well done, and I'm going to explain why. Hopefully, we're going to get through as to why I enjoyed this log so much. But do, smoke them if you got them. Get yourself something to drink. You already know how long this video is going to be. I don't know how long it is now since I'm recording it, but we got a lot to talk about in this one. And hopefully we can get through it, in a pretty quick manner. But yeah, this was a good log. And the characters in it are Zofu, Kerwin, and Cornell. And right off the bat, we already have a kind of eclectic group of characters in it. And the arc is the Lord of Blackley. And the synopsis is pretty long, but we're going to get through it. It's following the spar with Jamie. Zofu contemplates his forward path in the verse. I even said this in my notes. He's ruminating over his losses and achievements while addressing his wounds in a bathhouse in Pepper City. He reflects and decides on a course of action. Meanwhile, Kerwin and Cornell arrive in Pepper City, seeking the markets of the Terran City to sell their wares and gain rare materials. As Zofu exits the bathhouse, they are drawn into inevitable conflict. Kerwin setting off a daisy chain of violence by attempting to rob the demon, and Zofu aggravating it further by giving in to his pride and trying to remove the miscreant in short order, provoking Cornell. And quite honestly, that's exactly what happens from beginning, middle, and end. And yeah, I mean, it starts off with Zofu kind of in this bathhouse, and he's ruminating, he's lamenting, he's pondering on what's going on, but he's also telling a story that has not been finished. And I hate doing these reviews and focusing so much on one character, but we kind of sort of have to. In this one, we kind of sort of have to pick it apart character by character. One second. And this log started off as really it was a Zofu solo. That's what it was going to be. And just somewhere along the line, Kerwin and Cornell decided to show up, and they were like, hey, we're gonna crash this party, right? And Zofu is sitting, he's talking, he's telling us a story. He's telling us the story of a story that's not finished, actually. He's telling us the story of Minas Mordred. And while I don't know the details in it, I do know some of what happened in it. And we learn, and I don't know if we've ever heard this character's name spoken out loud, but we learn that, well, let me back up before I talk about the story, because the one thing that I love probably the most out of what happens in this log is that Zofu gives us pretty much a very strong expose dump without telling us that he's about to do it, right? So all of our characters, exist, at least in my head, they exist parallel to a timeline that we exist in. So 1 year for us is 1 year for them. And while Zofu has been active on the channel, he hasn't been super active, right? He hasn't been in this event and that event and that event. I think he may have missed Combat Month. I think he may have missed the Pumpkin King. I think he may have missed a lot of kind of going ons. And he tells us here, we get exposition, without it being like, hey Zofu, what's going on? And him being like, okay, so here's what's going on since you allowed me to do it. He doesn't, he shows us and not tells us, right? And I thought that was really wonderfully done. And it's just kind of going on of okay, so this is Yule, this is what happened. It was his idea, but he was hosting these people, or sorry, it was Rizian's idea. Zofu hosted it. He met a whole bunch of people, but he never really kept up with them. And then he kind of made promises to continue with Soliathan Styx as their third party in Crimson Industries. And he had broken some promises, right? Like, he never got his fight with Genesis, and he wanted to focus more attention on Eon and his academy. And he kind of was doing that. And then he gives us a reason as to why he didn't. And I call BS on this, but he says, Rizian kind of died at the beginning of summer, and that's why he was distracted from it. But he just kind of goes from like point A to point B. This is kind of what he did. This is where he goes, and as it reads a lot better than I'm explaining it. It's just well done, right? And then he he kind of tells himself like, okay, stop brooding, stop, just stop. Like, this is doing no one any good. And in between these posts from him, you kind of get like the secondary scene of Kerwin and Cornell kind of arriving, them kind of explaining why they're even here, and it's just, it meshes very well together. And that's why I liked this log, because while I'm reading these these deep thoughts and these brooding posts, and we're learning about a character, what's his name, Morgan, I'm sorry, let me get on the right page here. Yeah, Morgan Le Fay. And I'm not gonna really tell you what I know about this character. You'll have to kind of read it. But the one thing that I liked about Morgan, and my hope with this, if I'm allowed to hope, if I'm allowed to wish upon a star and wish for something, if I'm allowed to be a little bit greedy, it's that I hope that character does not turn into a solo villain that we don't ever see on page, right? The way that this character is presented, I hope he or they can really show up on page. I feel like this is something that everybody should have a crack at, right? Just, I'm going to give you guys kind of the text of what happened. This person chained up Zofu, carved into their flesh, ate part of their arm while Zofu was still alive. So Zofu is missing an eye. We know that he has, carvings on his back while he was still alive, and he's missing an arm. All of that happened by this person. And that's huge. I don't know if Lux knows how big that actually is, but this log is the perfect example of why those actions are maybe bigger than they understand. And I will get to that in a little bit. But yeah, we learned that, Zofu's pretty much like mentally haunted by this person, to the point where they want to like cast spells on themselves to heal the damage that this person has done. Like, they can do it, and they haven't done it. Like, that's a type of I don't know why I'm actually wearing headphones. That's a type of for lack of a better term, mindfuck, that I don't think anybody can really top, right? Because of who Zofu is. It's because that this is the Lord of Blacklight, right? This isn't just anybody. This isn't, your average tier 3 character. Like, this is Zofu. This is Mr. like, nobody can break me. Nobody messes with my stride. That's who he is. That's how he's always presented himself since his kind of return to the setting. And I don't think we can just look at that and shake it off. So to kind of get back to my point, I really feel like, I hope that at some point we see this character and we see this big bad, and he kind of does more. Now it would suck for Lux because it's their enemy. So if anybody should kind of take them out. It should be their character, but at the same time, I feel like it's a character that only they can portray, right? It's really a lot similar to Benedict Cumberbatch in the first Doctor Strange, right? Like, he was the only person who understood Dormammu, thus he played Dormammu. And it's not fun to kind of do that on page and on channel, to, you know, be fighting against yourself and your own bad guy, but then also, you know, you've got to give people, you know, it's a weird situation, and I feel like Lux would just reduce their own character's input to up the ante and give the villain more focus and attention. And this is Zofu's villain, so maybe I'm just being selfish by wanting, you know, other people to take a crack at them, or at least, if not take a crack at them, I feel like for us to understand how devastating this character is, that they would need to just make an appearance, right? And individually mess with people, and then that's what, you know, garners the attention of the rest of the verse, and that's why they have to take him down. But anyway, huge sidetrack there. So Zofu, yeah, he's brooding. He gives us like an up-to-date of what's happening to him, and then he exits the bathhouse. And as anybody with eyes, you can kind of see where this is going. That's where Kerwin tries to pickpocket him, and Zofu instantly tries to, you know, cut his arm off, and then he tries to cut his head off. He ends up blasting Kerwin away. But before all of that happens, it actually, as soon as they leave the bathhouse, Zofu senses Cornell, and I have to imagine that this happens because Lux and Nigmus have been role-playing together for so long, and they have such mutual respect for their characters. The reason that I said that what this other NPC did to Zofu was no simple task is because Zofu is treated as royalty, right? Zofu is not, and was, once they became the Lord of Blackley, they were no longer just your standard tier 2 character. And it sounds weird to say that out loud, and it sounds like it's like breaking the game. It's not, but they were just always taken in such regard of, you know, they are royalty. They are something to be respected, and catered to beyond what we normally would do, right? Beyond normal courtesy. And with Cornell, I was talking with Lux about this a couple of days ago, of like, I don't David, I don't understand the love for Cornell. It's not that I don't love the character, but it's like everybody loves this character. Everybody wants to interact with this character, to the point where they are treated kind of like in the same respect and vein of like, they are just a touch kind of above, just a little bit beyond. And the way that this log reads is that as soon as Zofu leaves, he kind of gets this sense of there's something magical out there. There's something that is dangerous out there. And it's not, sorry, Kerwin, it's not Kerwin. It's not the thousands or millions of other Zantetsu that could be out there. It's this one particular thing. And then in return, Cornell then senses that Zofu is something special. And I'm going to read this. I would put it up on page, but, you know, whatever. And so basically, Zofu leaves the bathhouse, and they use a RP skill that they have, Mastered Sense, in their Arcane Scrying Eye. Basically, it allows him to like kind of see through flesh, and it's like this super version of sense. And when he uses it and he spies on Cornell, this is the post that comes. Cornell slowly swiveled his gaze around one more time, then fell into step behind Kerwin, nodding aimlessly to Kerwin's discussion of Konat's metal imports. He had resolved to listen and follow Kerwin's lead, but Then a feeling raked across his mind like nails on a chalkboard. He was seen. They were not alone, and eyes were upon him. Not before the union, not since did he feel a presence like this, and that gaze revealed much. Few in the wide universe had eyes like Zofu's, and those eyes might never have beheld something this odd. It was not a made thing. Not even a madman could intentionally craft something like this. It was an amalgam, a borderline blasphemous union of things not meant to combine that had somehow melded into a true whole. The arcane was a part of it, as much as blood, as technology, and metal is to bone. So with that one paragraph, with that one entry, what essentially happened was, like, yes, like, I've created a lore, and, there is almost like an Illuminati, a magical beyond group, and they created me, and not since them has anyone looked at me like this, right? Again, at this point, we're all the same, but not Zofu. Zofu is beyond. So to be a character like that, and then to have an NPC have done the things to them as described in this log, I hope like everybody is following along now, of like, Morgan may be one of the strongest characters in our setting, or at least one of the most dangerous, right? That's not to say like someone like Urakoga probably couldn't do it, or probably could do it. Ymir probably could do it as well, but they didn't. Like, we know those are known knowns, and this is a known unknown. And then there's also the Wiz Kazbansky, the unknown unknowns, right? So that's why I kind of loved this log so much. And what I also, and I know I've been, glazing up Zofu in this one and in Cornell, but what I also loved about it was that to kind of get things going, Kerwin is just Kerwin. His character has been established. He's an antagonist, and he's antagonizing, right? And the simple way of him trying to rob Zofu, and then the fight happening, and the way that it kind of plays out is that, Zofu has his demon summoning. He summons an axe, swings it down, misses, but then swipes it around, and from the way it's described, it's like he either hit Kerwin with the blunt side of the axe before going to cut his head off or something, but he basically like threatens him. And he in the text he says he wasn't asking, he was commanding Kerwin to tell Cornell to stop, because once the violence kind of starts, Cornell kind of like kicks into like kill mode and starts charging at him. And what I loved about Kerwin, because he doesn't know who Zofu is, and he's not one of his pages, he's the Lord of Blacklake. He ain't the Lord of me. I'm not gonna tell him to do shit. He's kind of like, fuck you, I don't care who you are. Like, you take my head, bro, but you ain't shit to me. So and it, I don't know if that like humbled him, but it was humbling as the reader to read of like, yeah, the guy kind of ain't shit. But he is, but he ain't, right? Like, I love that he wasn't intimidated, right? It was, it was like I am Loki of Asgard. It's like, okay, I'm Hawkeye. I'm a dude with a bow. You want to scrap or what? Like, I don't care who you are. And then, the fight happens. And this fight was a good brawl, and it sets up things. And so, Steam Rising ends with Zofu kind of using most of his energy to blast Kerwin away, and sets up the fight of the 1v1 with Zofu and Cornell, which is Deck the Malls. And I was going to cover these together, but there was just a lot I needed to say in this video, and I have not finished Deck the Malls just yet. I am working on it. And the tonal shift is pretty strong, right? Like, these were not logs that, they finished one and they did it like on the same night. There definitely was like a stop, a pause, a reset, and then, everybody kind of came together again. And it was just, it kind of has that Yule feel, right? Like, it's very thematic. And I feel like Christmas just brings out like the joyish that we all have in role play, and it's like, yeah, now we're just gonna have fun with it. It's gonna be a fight. It's gonna be, bust knuckles. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be serious, but we're gonna have fun with it, and that's what Deck the Malls is. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. I hope it was it was 20 minutes long. I hope it was fun. I had fun reading Steam Rising. It got great marks. Even for the little bit of combat that Kerwin was part of, he still got a red or two. And I hope you guys had a good time. It seems like you did, and I hope that you enjoyed this review. I enjoyed making it, so thank you. For the rest of you, thank you for your time, and I will see you next time.